Hello and welcome to Healing Tips from the Heart, Intuition with Helpers, Healers, and Guides. I am your host, Dr. Lori Hops, licensed psychologist, writer, and artist. I've explored mind, body, and spirit related to intuition, or your personal guidance system, since early childhood. Meet my guests who have learned from their personal and professional lives to explore vast realms of knowing, synchronicities, and overcoming challenges. Their stories may inspire you with tools to enhance your daily living and relationships. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to my special guest today, Jannie Douma. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about her, and then we will get some more information. Jannie started her career as a teacher in secondary education, and then later on switched over to becoming a psychosocial therapist, where she studied many different modalities, including systemic work, transactional analysis, EMDR, and she is a master practitioner in Neuro Linguistic Programming. But I met her through a different community called Logosynthesis, which she began in 2017 and is now a practitioner in that method, which we will be talking about. She uses logosynthesis all the time for herself and her people around her to help with deep level growth and healing. In 2020, Jannie was diagnosed with breast cancer, which is a very difficult diagnosis for anyone to hear and can bring in naturally a lot of fear. But she was able to bring in other things as well, a feeling of certainty that she was not going to die from this, it wasn't going to kill her, and that she absolutely needed to start writing, because this was going to be an important process for her as well.
Thank you, Lori, for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to be with you, and I'd like people to know that you and I met through Logosynthesis, but also through another group where we were meeting together for collective healing. And I don't know if you want to speak more about that or not, but I just want people to know that I actually haven't physically met with you, but I do feel like I know you. Because we have a very powerful connection that I sense, even through the internet, and even including recording this today. we had to pull in a couple of extra supporting dynamics to be able to record smoothly. And so I'm hoping that that will continue as we work together.
Yes, and we learned each other by our talks. Because we are really talking about something that really matters, and then we speak from the heart, and from heart to heart we can meet each other every time we meet.
And I really do feel it. I felt an instant connection the first time I met you, and I said, I need to get to know this person better, and didn't really even know much about your story because we hadn't exchanged really any personal information at that point. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you to this healing journey that you're on now?
Oh, I guess I was aware of my life mission. And I really have to serve other people. And when I get my cancer diagnosis, I knew that this would help me to learn something, and that I can bring it to other people, what I've learned.
Mm.
And because it was very extraordinary that I wasn't afraid when the family doctor phoned me, because it was during COVID. So she did into our house. She just called and said, Jannie, you have cancer. And I wasn't afraid at all. And I was afraid when I was thinking about my parents or about my children who would, when I would not be physically around. But for myself, I wasn't afraid at all.
Wow. That's remarkable. And I'm wondering if it's a common experience. We are told that people are afraid when they hear, and they may well be. I guess it doesn't much matter if it's common or not. It was your experience.
It was my
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
And it allowed me to be also in the process of healing. And also, I could be aware of what was happening with all the people around during my journey. And I noticed that a lot of people are a little bit traumatized when they start their healing journey. And that's such a pity because the body isn't working well when we have a lot of fear. And when your adrenaline and cortisol is high, your melatonin is going down, and you really need that melatonin for all your body processes. So I think there's a lot to achieve when we are more aware, and the medical medicine is more aware of how people start their healing journey, because the mind is more important than you think
How
before.
fortunate. Yes, how fortunate that you didn't have that fear piled on top of the illness, because your body is already working so hard to live and to survive.
Yes, and a lot of people, they also have it hard because their loved ones act very emotional to the message that the cancer has been found. And so they don't have to, they have their own emotional reaction to the diagnosis.
Yes.
But they also have, they are worrying about all the people around them who just cry and are sad and everything. And that's a really low energy to start from for your healing process. And a lot
Yeah.
of people don't realize how important it is also for the one who become cancer diagnosis, how important the support from their loved ones is for their healing journey. And they don't have to be concerned about your emotional well-being.
Yeah. It's a very difficult bind that I've seen in my life too, from people who I love, some who are here, some who have passed. And that it's very difficult because you want to authentically be there to support the person in need, but you also have your own personal grieving, and you want to be reassured somehow that they're still here for you too. It's complicated, all these layers. And so you had an advantage because the fear wasn't there to keep you frozen in shock, so that you could figure out how to navigate that with your loved ones who were so concerned about you. Yeah.
Yes, and I think it was during COVID, and I think that was also a blessing because people who were otherwise would be crying on my kitchen table didn't visit, so I could stay with my own process. So that was also kind of a blessing.
Yeah, it was almost like you were given a temporary sanctuary to kind of just let it all hang out and be
Yes, the
yourself.
whole world gave me
A
all the.
timeout. Yeah. And of course, because people don't want to get you sick on top of the cancer with COVID or a cold or anything else. So they're going to be very protective of you. And then
Yes.
that gave you the freedom to probably, knowing a little that I do about you, to really go within, to go
Yes,
into a very deep place.
I started really working hard with meditations, with everything else, with everything I could think of what could help me from the inside. And I think a lot of cancer patients would really like to support their health, but they don't know how. They don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote a book with a lot of opportunities and so that people can make their own choices every time, every day again. Every day you can make your own choices. And a lot of people with a cancer diagnosis, they forget that they are self the director of their healing journey.
It's so easy to be in just kind of surrender to the fear and to the authority of what the medical community, the doctors, the loved ones, people with more experience than yourself have to say. And it's so hard to use your own discernment anyway. People have a hard time learning that usually. And then when you're afraid or going through something big, you get more confused more easily. So
Well, when you're in survival mode,
yeah,
you don't think as well as when you're in peace.
right.
And you have to go out of the survival mode as soon as possible.
So can you talk a little bit about that and maybe what some tips that you've learned to help you get out of that survival mode?
Well, I created with a colleague of ours, Alan, we created a course. It's Reclaiming Your Power. And that's especially made for people who just heard that they are diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
And we do several things. We adjust the fear, so your body is working better.
Mm-hmm.
We start meditations, so you instruct your nervous system that your immune system has to do a little bit better than yesterday. And we also inviting them to make their own vision of your future, because that's very important. And when you don't make your vision of your future, you might not have a future, because every cell in your body listens to your thoughts. And that's why it's so important that more people are aware of how important their thoughts and the words they use are for every cell in your body, because every thought has a message for every cell in your body.
Yep.
And if your body isn't in balance, then there's for cancer cells the opportunity to grow.
Because they have free reign. They have a more, you don't want to give them too much space to get comfortable.
No.
Yeah. So
the immune system has to work very good.
efficiently. Yep.
So you have to come out of the survival mode, because you need less cortisol, less adrenaline to have the healing hormones in your body.
Yeah. So it's beautiful that you have this course with Alan. And is this specifically for people with cancer diagnosis?
It's now especially for people with cancer diagnosis, but I can imagine that anyone who has heard of any disease, any diagnosis, that it would help. Okay. Yes, my other colleague of ours, Gusta, read my book, and she said, why is it called Cancer Opportunities? Because it is really about crisis opportunities. Everyone, what crisis you are, if you're in a divorce, or if you lost your home or lost your health.
Yeah.
The crisis. And when you don't worry about your house or how big your car is, then there's a space where you can learn who you really are and what you really want to be, and who you want to be in the future. And it gives us a little. It's a cancer diagnosis. I think it's just a life course. To know who you are, what you want, who you want to be. And it's just it's the journey is going faster when you have a diagnosis.
It forces you to look at things you probably would ignore ordinarily.
Yes.
Any kind of crisis does that. We kind of get little taps on the shoulder, like, it might be a good idea to switch gears. And you're like, yeah, maybe tomorrow. You get more casual, but when something like that is right in your face, then you have to wake up. You have choices to make. I'm seeing the beautiful picture behind you. Those who are on audio only can't see, but there's a lovely picture of a wave crashing at the shore. and the spray coming up into the air. And it's reminding me of that feeling of being confronted with something, you know, and do you dive under? Do you start to choke? Do you rise above it and jump over the wave? You know, do you swim with it? Do you have it ride into the shoreline? All these different ways of responding to things when they come in, because really what it is pure energy. And how are you going to transform that? You talked about looking ahead to the future. And if you have no future to look forward to, then you can't really choose. But sometimes we get caught into negative futures of doom and anxiety and fear and what will happen and what could go wrong and all of that. And so it takes a different kind of a switch to go into something that's even neutral, let alone positive. And so, yeah, I'll stop there. And
Well, where your attention is, there's the energy.
mm-hmm.
So if you think of a very negative image for the future, then there's your energy.
Yeah.
And all your cells are listening to that future if you repeat it time after time after time. So it's very important. I just moved when I got my cancer diagnosis.
Mm.
And I had a pear tree next to my kitchen window. And one time fear came up. And that's when I saw that little pear tree next to the window. And I thought, what if I can't see it when it blossoms or anything else? I thought it isn't possible. So I had a lot of visualizations about my vegetable garden. This was the first time when I have a house with a vegetable garden next to it. And I had a lot of fruit trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagined that I was running through the vegetable garden, that I picked some strawberries, some apples, some pears. I made pies from it. I made really lovely things because I wanted it to happen.
I
I was
love
very
it.
determined, and that the image that I had,
Yeah.
was a little film, little recording in my head, and it went over and over again several times a day. This was what I wanted.
I love it. You're reminding me how good you are at visualization and describing your visual images, and I just slip right into them with you. And so I can see you there with the tree and saying, I'm going to be with you, tree. we're going to cross the seasons together. This is not the end of the story. You will not bloom your lovely blossoms without me admiring you.
Yes.
That's so great. And seeing how you'd have the berries and the fruit, and that you're making pies and baking and enjoying life in such a physical way that's so sensory absorbed, because it's not just some, oh, I'm going to be here next year on the calendar. You were living into your
I baked
experience.
an apple pie, and my family was sitting on the table in the garden, and when it was still warm from the oven, I was putting it on the table with clotted cream, and I enjoyed it very much with my family members. So that was my future.
I love it. You know, please start again.
And that happened.
And
And
it
even
did.
I had to go to radiotherapy, I just had a little package of flower seed into the back pocket of my trousers, because that garden, I want to be there season after season after season after season.
And I love it. I love it. I love that it actually happened too, so that you could be with your family with your fruit pies or whatever it was, a clotted cream. I love it. And oh my, you know, I teach classes on embodied intuition, and it's a similar process where it's not just a thought of intuition, but the full body experience, the sensory enhancement. And this is what we find also for manifesting or creating things out of nothing, like a blueprint for a design for a structure, and then you have the physical structure. It's not enough to just see the blueprint. What does the wood look like? What's the measurements? What's it going to be like to be in that space when it's created? How are you feeling? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? What are you hearing? And when you bring in this full body experience, the body doesn't know the difference between the future and now. And so
No,
you
isn't
really,
that lovely? Isn't that lovely?
yes,
That your brain doesn't know if it's right, if it's really happening, or if it's only something in the brain.
yeah.
I think we can use it more often.
Yes, and we're building these invisible but powerful structures of manifestation, of creating something out of nothing, quote unquote nothing. And you're bringing it into the here and now. And so the scarf I'm wearing, this was started off as an idea, of how the fabric should be, the different patterns, the picture that you have of how it was developed in the wall, from a photo to an image that's from a reality to a photo to this thing behind you that's so beautiful. And so we don't think about those things, but when it comes to emotional things or our future, sometimes we forget that we have that same power to create, and also to derail ourselves into worrying, because the worrying can take on a life of its own with all of that embodied angst as well.
Yes, it
So
is.
clearing all that is so good. And I'm wondering did you have specific, you mentioned Alan and others helping you, and your own sense of that you were going to be fine, you were going to live through this. Do you have other helpers, healers, or guides that have been helping you as well?
At first, people around me were afraid. And I think we all collectively have our own thoughts when we hear the word cancer. And as you mentioned earlier, a lot of people have not processed their own experiences with cancer, because even if you don't or diagnosed yourself, maybe you have a memory of a mom or a dad or a brother. And when you don't process those journeys, they come up when you hear the word cancer.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of work to do to let for me, cancer had six letters, and that was it. It only was 6 letters. But I also a lot of people have a lot of ideas, feelings when the word cancer is falling into a talk.
Yeah.
And I think we have to do a lot of homework all over the planet to make it less heavy.
So you
Because
said, yes.
in the Chinese language, we have two characters for crisis. And the first character is dangerous, a threat. And the second character is about an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And we know the threat of cancer,
Mm-hmm.
but not a lot of people know the opportunity of cancer,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really a wake-up call, and you can learn from it. And maybe your physical body will heal, but I hope at least your soul heals in the process. Maybe you have the experience of visiting a really sick, ill person,
Mm-hmm.
and you think, "Oh my, what shall I say? What shall I do?" And when you are connecting, that you think, "Wow, what a power does this woman or this man have?"
Yes.
And that is when they are at peace with their illness, then their illness isn't very important anymore.
Yeah. You're meeting their soul.
Yes, you're meeting their soul. And it's an opportunity, a learning opportunity to show your soul.
Yeah.
And to connect with your soul.
And so those are the ultimate guides and helpers.
Yes. And when you visit, you think, oh, poor woman, poor man. But when you leave, you think, wow, what a strength. What would I like to have some of those, that power,
Yeah.
which that's in this connection with this other people.
I imagine that, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen it myself, and it's deeply touching. It makes ordinary life pale in comparison. You sort of start to think, what's the point of going after superficial things? And it reminds me, and that includes when you yourself face something harrowing and meet your own soul in a new kind of a way. And so it reminds me of the experiences people talk about when they've had a near-death experience. It's like they get transported to a different powerful reality that is overlaid and interspersed with the ordinary reality, and yet is different. And it makes it hard sometimes to reconnect to the old ways before the diagnosis or the near-death experience, because you have fundamentally connected to a different aspect of reality.
Yes, I also in my life had a near-death experience.
Ah,
And I think that helped a lot.
okay.
Because I was laying ill on the couch for a few months, and I thought, wow, if this is life, I don't like life. And the next moment, I was looking to my body from a certain height, and I thought, well, it's only my body who is sick. My soul is not sick at all.
Wow.
And I didn't realize that at that moment, but it became a very important experience in my life, because I knew that even if my body is ill, the deepest of me, my soul, is not ill at all.
Yeah. What a gift.
Yes, yes, I was so fortunately.
Wow. It just shows, I didn't know that about you. And so but I was compelled to talk about near-death experience. I kept seeing in my mind as we were talking, Eben Alexander, the famous neurosurgeon who died and came back and was able to talk about all these different layers of reality, including the physical reality that his brain should not have been able to capture at the time because of the advanced state of disease that he was in. Wow, how beautiful to see this certainty. So you had a glimpse to a different reality that showed you the messaging that you needed, so that you then could say, this is not, I am living. This is happening to me.
And I'm not my body.
And I am not my
Because
body.
a lot of people identify with their body.
Yeah.
If you see on social media, a lot of identifying is with their body.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think life is always as good as when you're 20 or 30. And your body changes all the time.
Yes.
So it was very nice to notice that I am not my body. There's something inside me. It's a sparkle of God. It's divine.
Yeah.
And even if my body doesn't do it very good, the divine in me never can. No man can um, I have the divine in me, and no one else can touch it.
Yeah. Very profound messages. And it gives you this sense of certainty to be able to have the courage to walk through the dark days. because there are dark days that happen.
Yes, of course. And what I learned from that experience was it doesn't. It's not. Everyone has experience on their life path that they didn't choose,
Mm-hmm.
but you can choose your reaction.
Yeah.
Every time again, you can choose your reaction.
Yep.
And every day you can make your own choices. And I think a lot of people who are diagnosed with cancer think that only doctors know something, what they have to do with their bodies. But you are in direction. So in front of my book, I have a really nice definition of a family doctor from the Netherlands. And she said, health is the ability of people to deal with physical, emotional, social, and I added it, spiritual, life challenges while exercising as much self-direction as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That is health. And
Yeah.
health is not only a healthy body.
Yeah.
It's much more bigger than that.
I love it.
Also being in balance.
Yeah.
If you have processed your own life experiences, because not everyone has not everyone has a nice childhood. Everyone has memories you would pass if you could. But you have to process those experiences. And when you don't, then you do learn nothing. And I think everyone on earth has to learn about everything that comes your way. And even though if it are experiences that you don't like, you can still make your choices.
Yes. Spoken like the true teacher that you are.
Yes. There's still a teacher in me.
Yeah. And, and we're all teachers and we're all students, and we learn from our experiences from one another, and we teach ourselves and we look back and learn things differently and all of that. I so appreciate the depth of conversation and your authenticity and your courage and your willingness to reveal these very personal aspects of your journey and sharing with your book and your stories. I'm deeply touched and very admiring of what you're sharing.
Thank you. That's so lovely to hear, because every time there's a book launch, I really got scared, because it's my personal story. It's my I tell everything about how I reacted, how my family reacted, and it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we are now in front of the English book launch, and I just noticed on my body that there's a little bit excitement again from how will the readers find the core of the book. I really hope from my heart that people are finding their power again to make the choices they have to make every day, and every day you can make choices, and it's not what comes on your way, it's how you react on it.
Yeah.
And that's so important, is how you react on it. And you can choose, even if you think there aren't choices, you can choose.
Yes. And you are choosing and making wonderful choices and inspiring other people with your bravery and your choices. And they're not easy choices to make, but they can be incredibly life enhancing and gives you the power to keep going.
Yes, and luckily I was born with a lot of courage. So every time I think, oh no, this afternoon I thought, oh, why did I say yes to Lori podcast? And every time I think, it's not familiar to you, but you have to do it, and you learn something about it, and that's my choice.
Yes.
That I will be here, and that I do uncomfortable things.
Yeah.
It's just I can't do anything otherwise.
You're going to get so good at this, you're not even going to think about it. And doing interviews.
I'm visualizing that, Laurie. Lots.
Well, I'm so grateful that you did say yes. This is new for a format for me. I've only been at this several months now, and it's getting more and more comfortable all the time. So I hope this was a pleasant and easy experience for you.
Yes. Well, it was sowieso, it was lovely to be with you because I love you dearly. And we have a soul connection, and
Yeah.
even we don't not a lot about our personal life, we connect.
Yeah. The minute I met you, I'm like, oh my goodness, I sort of feel like, oh, I found another sister on the planet. So that's
And there are
lovely.
still a lot more.
And me and the pear tree are glad you're still here. With a lot of other souls to connect with. Well, as we're coming to the end of our time, is there anything else you'd like to share about intuition or healing from the heart, or something else that comes to mind?
Well, I think it's very important that doctors can do beautiful things to your body, but you're also can do a lot for your. You can also do a lot supporting your body from within. Also,
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of people don't recognize the opportunities, and that they don't know where they have to search for things to do. But you're not a victim. There is a lot to do, and you have to work very hard, and you have to be courageous, and you have to be stubborn and go on, even if you don't have a result yet that you want. But there is such a big world of opportunities. Dive in.
Yes, dive in. That's a
Yes.
perfect word to end on, with this beautiful picture behind you of the ocean and wearing a lovely blue top.
And then you just you have to ignore your fears. You just have
Mm-hmm.
to dive in.
Yep. Well, I love diving in with all of this with you. So thank you so very much for joining and being brave and courageous on the next step of your journey, and being really a guiding light for other people as well. It's a true blessing.
I hope so.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Laurie, for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. If you want to learn more, you can visit my website for podcast and resources at hopshealingtips.com. You can also like, share, and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only, and is not providing healthcare advice. Please seek guidance from your professional healthcare team should you need assistance.